Once upon a time, in the bustling village of Olokun, nestled between rolling green hills and the banks of a mighty river, there lived a woman whose beauty was beyond compare. Her name was Nia. Her skin glowed like polished mahogany, her eyes shimmered like morning dew catching the first light of dawn, and her smile, oh, her smile, was so enchanting that even the elders forgot their wisdom when they gazed upon her. Men spoke about her in hushed tones, women cast envious glances, and children stared in awe whenever she walked through the busy market square. Traders lost count of their goods, palm wine spilled from trembling hands, and even the birds seemed to pause in admiration as she passed. An old woman sitting beneath the ancient baobab tree shook her head as she watched. "This kind of beauty is dangerous," she murmured, her voice carrying the weight of experience. But Nia was not just beautiful, she was wise. She understood the effect she had on people and knew how to wield her charm carefully. "No touching before marriage," she always said. Every man who sought her affection was met with this condition. To the villagers, it was a sign of her virtue and dignity. They respected her restraint. They praised her. But Nia knew the truth. This was not about dignity. It was about her secret, one she had carried since birth. If a man ever touched her, if a man ever saw what lay hidden between her thighs, he would never be the same again. So she smiled, she laughed, she allowed men to admire her from a distance, but she never let any of them get too close. That was how she lived, until Kwame, a young warrior with a heart as brave as a lion's, entered her life. Kwame was known throughout Olokun for his kindness and strength. He was a skilled hunter, a protector of the village, and a man with a heart full of dreams. When he first saw Nia at the riverbank, where she filled her clay pot with fresh water, his breath caught in his throat. His heart pounded like the village drum. "This woman," he thought, "this is the one I will marry." From that day he pursued her. He presented her with gifts, colorful woven fabrics, the sweetest palm wine, and the freshest bush meat. He composed songs in her honor, whispered words of devotion into the wind, and carved her name into the trunks of mighty trees. "Nia, you are the light that guides me through the darkest nights," he told her. She smiled, she laughed, but she did not let him get too close. "No touching before marriage," she reminded him. Kwame respected her wishes. "You are a woman of great worth," he said, his admiration growing. "I will wait." For months they courted. The villagers watched. They gossiped. "Finally, Nia will marry," they exclaimed. And then, on a bright afternoon, Kwame went to her father's house with his elders. He knelt before her and declared, "Marry me, Nia. Be the mother of my children." Nia smiled. She liked Kwame. He was gentle and he made her laugh. But deep inside, fear gripped her heart. Still she said, "Yes, I will marry you." The village erupted in celebration. Drummers played, women sang, and children ran through the streets chanting her name. "Nia the Beautiful is getting married." The wedding was magnificent. Even the oldest members of the village said they had never seen such a joyous feast. But the real night had not yet come. When the festivities ended, and the last embers of the celebratory fires died down, Nia and Kwame were finally alone. The air was still, the sound of crickets filled the silence between them. Kwame took her hands gently. "My love, do not be afraid. You are mine now." Nia's hands trembled. She had known this moment would come. She stepped back, her voice barely above a whisper. "Kwame, maybe we should rest first. We are tired." Kwame chuckled. "Rest. My wife, do not be shy. I have waited for this night. I will be gentle." Nia's breath hitched. There was no escape. With shaking fingers, she slowly removed her garments. The moment Kwame laid his eyes on what lay hidden between her thighs, his body stiffened. His eyes widened in horror. And then he let out a cry that pierced the night. "Ah, my eyes! My eyes!" he wailed, stumbling backward. He clutched his face as if trying to shield himself from something unseen. Nia gasped. "Kwame! What is happening?" she cried, rushing to him. But Kwame did not respond. His world had turned black. Just like that, his sight was gone. His screams woke the village. People ran into the house. Elders, women, children. What happened? What is wrong with him? They demanded. But Kwame only wailed. He pointed in Nia's direction. His face twisted in fear. But he could not see her anymore. The elders murmured among themselves. The villagers whispered. Their eyes turned to Nia, suspicion growing in their faces. The next morning, Nia packed her belongings and left. She did not cry. She did not explain. She simply vanished into the wilderness, leaving Kwame behind with eyes that would never see again. But fate was not finished with her yet. In the weeks that followed, whispers of Nia's curse spread across the region. Some said she was possessed by spirits. Others claimed she was an outcast from another world. Fear surrounded her name, and she was no longer welcomed anywhere she went. Desperate, she sought the wisdom of an old healer named Abeni, a woman known for her connection to the spirits. Abeni listened intently as Nia poured out her heart, speaking of the men who had suffered, of the pain she carried, of the burden she bore since birth. Abeni sighed and traced her fingers along Nia's palms. "Child," she murmured, "this curse was placed upon you before you even drew breath. It was not of your doing. It is the work of one who wished to see you suffer." Nia's heart pounded. "Who did this to me?" she whispered. Abeni's eyes darkened. "A jealous heart. A woman who feared what you would become." And then it became clear. Nia's own stepmother had sought out a dark sorcerer when she was just a baby. Envious of the love and attention showered upon Nia's mother, she had cursed the child to a life of pain and isolation. With this revelation, Nia knew what she had to do. She returned to Olokun, standing before the village elders, her voice strong, her heart steady. "I was cursed as an infant," she declared. "Not by the gods, but by the wicked hands of jealousy. I will no longer bear this burden." The truth stunned the village. Her stepmother, faced with the weight of her sins, fell to her knees in shame. And then, the healer Abeni performed the cleansing ritual. The spirits were summoned, the winds howled, and the curse that had haunted Nia since birth was finally broken. For the first time in her life, Nia was free. She left Olokun once more, but this time it was not in shame. It was in peace. She traveled far, found love not bound by fear or superstition, and built a new life where she was no longer a woman of whispers but a woman of strength. And so, the legend of Nia lived on, not as a tale of misfortune, but as a story of resilience, of triumph, and of a woman who reclaimed her own fate.